leave me for 1 month.
Just over a month ago, I was leaving my apartment in Chiang Mai to go on a 5-week speaking tour across Australia, the US, and Canada. Although it's always hard to say goodbye to my girlfriend, I was excited to travel and connect with students, parents, and professionals on tour. The tour was off to a good start when I found a first-class flight to Australia for $1,000. Usually a first-class flight will be between $5,000 to $6,000 to $7,000, so this was a really big win. My seat even had a mirror. Last year I flew internationally every 2 weeks and was on a lot of flights and could never really afford much more than business class if I was lucky, but from business class you can see the first class cabin and they have stars. For me, as silly as it sounds, being able to sit in first class cabin with stars was a motivation for me to really work hard, to have better opportunities this year to be able to fly in more comfort. So being able to fly first class for my first flight of the year was a really nice experience, and overall I was just really excited to get the tour started. I came into Australia a couple days early to spend some time with family. I have a godson who lives in a place called Noosa that also happens to be one of the most beautiful places in the world. I find that spending time with kids is such a great way to reconnect to what's really normal and natural for us in the world. It's so easy to get caught up in using technology and needing phones and needing to be online when you see a kid who is just interested in everything and they have so much fun just skateboarding or surfing or playing, and they don't need all this extra stimulation that we often can find ourselves needing as adults.
We're on a turbo horse, yes.
But for now, I need to get back to preparing my presentations. I start tomorrow. I have 3 different talks at a high school here in Brisbane, and I speak back-to-back days, 4 days in a row. So it's going to be pretty heavy, pretty intense, but I'm also really excited to bring this message back to Brisbane and really reconnect with students who maybe I've seen over the past couple years. So just gearing up, I'm about to speak to a couple hundred 5th and 6th graders. It's always a lot of fun to speak to this audience because they're so engaged and super excited to be able to talk about gaming. And so we'll talk about how do we keep gaming to be a hobby and not a problem. To do that, what I suggest for students is first, have a balance of other hobbies and interests. Second, to prioritize what matters most: good sleep, exercise, family relationships, and their future. Do those things before they focus on gaming. And finally, third, to play better games. Play games where you can pause and be able to save your progress, or games that we know can be good for your mental health. Playing better games sometimes is a better suggestion than not gaming at all. With my tour in Australia coming to an end, I began to look forward to the US and Canada and all the upcoming gigs to come. But also coronavirus was beginning to become a bigger deal, and there were a lot of concerns that I had about whether or not my dates would end up actually happening or if they would ultimately be canceled. I knew things were starting to go wrong before I flew from Australia. Right before I got on my flight, I received an email from my gig in Nebraska stating that they were looking at canceling the event, and by the time I landed in Los Angeles, they had actually followed through with that. After flying for 24 hours, I eventually made my way to Dallas, where, to be honest, I was just completely exhausted. I woke up the next day, it was Wednesday, and my focus really had to just go to getting prepared for the event. The following day in Dallas, I needed to kind of recover from my jet lag and just get ready for these events that were going to come very quickly. When I woke up on Thursday morning, I started to get dressed for my Dallas gig when I received a phone call from Montreal stating that they were canceling their event as well. And while on my way to the Dallas school, I received an email from Kansas, who were also canceling their event. And, for me, I really just had to kind of stay focused on speaking to students later that day in Dallas. I figured of all events that were safe, Dallas was safe because I was literally at the school preparing to give my talk. And I had 2 events that day. The first was to speak to the esports team and really just connect with them about, how they can prevent gaming from being a problem when they're really pursuing it as a career. And overall, that talk I felt went really well, and it was really nice to have a really good conversation with the team and know that they were really thinking about how to keep things in balance and how to pursue it with a lot of intention but without the harm. Now, I had a bit of a break between that talk and my next one a couple hours later, and while waiting in the green room, the organizer came in, I thought, to tell me, okay, let's go to stage now. It was about 15 minutes before I was scheduled to speak when he informed me that the campus had been closed effective immediately and the event had been canceled. Now, in this moment, I just kind of laughed and honestly just kind of face-palmed the table. It was the culmination of such a surreal experience. With just a couple days, all my events were canceled. I had just flown from Australia to the US for these events, and it was really all for nothing at the end of the day. I still had one event, which was West Virginia, but that event actually was canceled as well within about 15 minutes after the Dallas event. I'll be honest, the financial loss for me from the tour being canceled was pretty intense, but at the end of the day, that was out of my control, and really for me, I just had to kind of move on with my life. Throughout this experience, I had to constantly be evaluating different contingency plans. I was flying to different cities every day. I was in new Airbnbs every single day. And I had to be very mindful of what would happen if the US actually went into lockdown, or what would happen if all of a sudden I had to be in quarantine. I didn't really have the luxury of being able to prepare a bunch of food and really start to, get toilet paper and all these different things for my Airbnbs because I was moving on the next day. So with all my events canceled, I shifted my focus immediately to how can I get out of the US? And ultimately I had two different choices. Either I could fly back to Thailand and spend this, next period of time with my girlfriend, or I could fly back to Canada and stay with my family. Now, of course, my first choice would be coming back to Thailand to spend it with my girlfriend, but there were a lot of question marks about whether or not I would even be able to get back into the country. And it was really difficult for me to actually find information on the landscape changing so rapidly, not just in the US, but also in Thailand. And really, I actually had quite a big fear that the US was very close to shutting down domestic travel and international travel. I also had to consider, in the event that I was not able to fly anymore, how would I be able to get out of the country? And so, for instance, I would rent a car and drive to Canada, or I could rent a car and drive to different friends that I knew in the US and just stay with them. Having your contingency plans is really important just to really alleviate stress and anxieties that you might feel with a lot of uncertainty. Thankfully, I was able to secure a flight back to Thailand, and it was on Sunday. And so this was Friday, and I really just had to kind of, wait it out. Thankfully, I was able to, get on my flight from Dallas to LA and then get from LA back to Thailand. But it was quite a surreal experience being back in Los Angeles just 4 days later when I had arrived so excited about this tour. My priority really was just getting back home and getting back to my apartment, and I can't tell you how relieved I was being back in Thailand, getting into the country, and just coming back into my apartment and knowing that, my girlfriend and I could be here and we could wait out this whole experience and just be safe together. We're living in a historic time. This is unprecedented. We've never really gone through an experience like this together, and I guess my main message here is just be open to things changing, be open to having to adapt, be open to this experience maybe lasting longer than you thought. And really, for me, my mindset is just being ready for this to be a marathon and not a sprint, being ready for this experience to last longer than you maybe initially anticipated. Having your mindset in the right place during this time is really important for you to be able to get through it in a really positive way and to not have this experience really cause a lot of harm in your life. There are a lot of things in this experience you can't control, but there are certain things you can control. So control the things you can control and let everything else go. Understand that things will get better in the future, and we really just all need to kind of come together right now and do what we can to improve the situation, not just in our own lives, but for the lives of everybody else as well. And one day I really look forward to going back on tour, being in person with so many of you and so many people around the world, and being able to just continue to spread this message, whether it's online or in person, that gaming can remain in balance, and ultimately we can live very healthy and productive lives and really make a difference in the world. And I hope that that's a mission that you're passionate about and will take on watching these videos. And I know that's a message that I'm going to continue to push forward and carry on as well, whether we're stuck in quarantine or not. So thanks so much for watching. Thanks for being here. And I wish you all the best. I hope that you're safe and be well during this time.